Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And it must be said, through the miracle of technology, we are broadcasting to you this evening. We had a few technical hiccups at the beginning of our record, so I got a very long piece of string. I put some cups on each end, and I threw it to Joy, who lives actually not that far from where I do. We record over Zoom because it's convenient from a technology perspective. But I tossed that cup to her. She caught it, and she's listening to what I say through the cup. And here we are. I hope you all enjoy this.
Yes, there was a lot of effort that went into being Tim closing and reopening and playing with settings until we finally, for some reason, my audio, ever since I broke my foot, I've sent something out to the world. And so it's just my luck at the moment. But anyway, so moving along.
But there we are. And it's absolutely nothing to do with you dumping a cup of water in your laptop either.
No, not related. I'm not convinced I didn't short circuit the mic a little bit. But anyway, well, I was also, one of the things I tried was I moved my, so I have to plug my microphone directly into a USB port, because if I put it in my USB hub, you get a little like a hum, which Tim's familiar with. So I had it on one side and I was like, oh no, what if there's like, somehow I short circuited this one and moved it over here? It wasn't related, but it was worth a shot.
But there we go. We're here. We are broadcasting. It is all good. Okay, so we are going to go into music news. Music news. Music news. Yay! I think we need a jingle or something, or maybe it's just me going, music news.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Well, I'd like to I would like to open music news. And today's music news is a big anniversary. And I'm wearing a T-shirt. If you're watching this on YouTube, there we are. I'm wearing a T-shirt in its honor. And today is the 40th anniversary of the compact disc.
What a time to be alive, Tim. If compact discs are turning 40, good Lord.
Exactly. In August 1982, the first commercially pressed CD was made in a factory, and it was ABBA's The Visitors.
Yes, and Tim was actually the first person who told me that. We were discussing ABBA, and Tim confessed his love of The Visitors to me, and then he mentioned this lovely fact about it was the first CD.
Yeah, I mean, there were test pressings made, and there were various prototypes made. Originally CDs weren't the size that they are. I think they were a little bit bigger originally, and then, using audio compression or what kind of stuff, they managed to bring the size down. When I say audio compression, data compression, not audio compression, because they're an uncompressed file. Anyhow, it's beside the point. But they made prototypes and all that kind of stuff. But as far as an actually mass-produced CD designed to be sold at retail, ABBA The Visitors was the very first one ever made.
And it was a great CD.
Absolutely, I love ABBA The Visitors. And I mean, it was also one of the first albums to be digitally recorded and digitally mixed. So it made a lot of sense that would be one of the first albums to be pressed on compact disc.
Well, and I wonder, because it has a very kind of, I don't know if I want to say lighter pop, but it has a very complex and almost mature, they used to be kind of like a lighter pop. ABBA did, and then they kind of feel like they matured, and this album kind of matured with them. And the way the sound is, I feel like it was probably a really good thing for them to use for the original CD, because if you've listened, it's one of those albums that you have to listen from the beginning to the end, right, Tim? It's like a story. It's almost a masterpiece. Sure,
and there's a lot of darker tones on ABBA The Visitors, and like you say, it really does show maturity in their songwriting away from the, I don't want to say disposable pop, but sort of the more lighter pop type stuff.
For lack of a better way of saying it. I don't know how else to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You do have to listen to The Visitors from beginning to end. And I have done that many, many times. I mean, the opening track, The Visitors, is a great track, and there are good tracks all the way through. But yeah, I think it's much like your Sgt. Pepper's and Night of the Operas and all that kind of stuff, Day at the Races, etc. I think you do have to listen to the whole thing in its entirety.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's more of like a theatrical piece in that sense. Or, like how an opera is like a story, but it's through music. It's kind of like that. It's the way I imagine it.
Exactly. And one other thing I'd like to say about the compact disc. Now, It was originally developed by Philips, because they had some success with laser vision and laser disc in the 70s and early 80s. And it was sort of off the back of that they developed the compact disc technology. However, they worked in tandem with Sony. Sony worked with them on the miniaturization of a lot of that technology. And Philips worked on sort of the vision and adapting the laser disc technology to make the audio compact disc. So it was a rare moment when those two companies worked together to make this one product.
I mean, I guess I never really thought about it, but if I had to choose two companies that would be behind CDs, I would think that would be the ones.
Exactly. And also, I have a very personal story with the realm of the compact disc. So back in 1983, I believe it's when they first came to the UK and Europe, this Philips released a CD100, which was the very first commercially available CD player. There was also a Sony model, but I think that came slightly after that. But the CD100 in Europe was the first one that you could get. My dad worked in a Philips dealer, and they were a very big Philips dealer. And they had the second CD100 in the country, the second CD player ever in the UK they had. And the first one went to Harrods. And then the second one went to the shop that my dad used to work at, Templeton TV in Hounslow, no less. So when I was very much younger, this device came in, and I heard the very first or second CD player in the UK.
Wasn't there something else that you got that was like the first one of it at the shop? Or did I imagine that?
I heard surround sound very early on, Dolby Surround, and I remember hearing it. I think that may have been from a Laserdisc, actually, because they sold Philips Laserdisc or Laservision or whichever one it was. And I was woefully unimpressed with it when I was 10 years old. And I've never been impressed with surround sound since.
They couldn't sell Tim on it at a young age and he gave up. That's funny. I just remember there was another story where you were one of the first things went to the shop. That's cool, though. How did that happen? Did he have to ask for it, or did he just happen to be sent to him? How does that even happen?
Well, they were a big Philips dealer. They were one of the biggest Philips dealers in London, and they sold a lot of Philips product. They had a good relationship with the Philips rep, and at the time it wasn't expected. I won't say it wasn't expected, but no one thought that it was going to be this massive, massive thing that every car would have it, every home would have it, everyone would know what it is. It was just a new product. I mean, you
never know what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, Sony released mini disc, and then you had Philips release the digital compact cassette, and then you had 8-track tapes, and then you had all these formats that would appear and disappear. So this CD player arrived. Maybe it was going to be the next big thing, maybe not.
Well, look at you, Tim. Above and beyond the times, above and beyond.
There we are. And my personal journey is I had lots of CDs. I sold all those CDs. I bought a Gibson Les Paul. It hurt my back. I ended up in the emergency room. I sold the Gibson Les Paul. I bought a Music Man guitar. And then I moved to the United States, went a period of while and decided, you know what? Buying physical music is cool. Bought a load of CDs, got into vinyl for about 5 minutes, realized it was too expensive and the quality control wasn't good, stopped buying vinyl, started buying CDs again. So there you go. That's my personal physical music journey for you all.
Everybody's going to be able to track, they're going to go on Tim's Facebook and be tracking times. Be so this is about the time Tim bought that computer that broke his, or computer, bought that guitar that broke his back. And I think right about here is when he sold his music collection because he looks sad. All right. Is that your only piece of music news today for us, Tim?
Yeah, that's the one only piece of music news I had. It's a big story, maybe the biggest story of today. So I think that's the one that I'm going to go with.
So I am going to go with someone that me and Tim are probably not super familiar with as an artist, but I thought this was a piece of important, kind of iconic. So Soleil Knowles, Celine Knowles, I don't know how to say her name. It's Beyonce's sister. Knowles is her last name, but it's like Celine. Her first name, I'm not, Solange actually might be it. Solange, internet, don't come for me. Sorry, I'm not super familiar with her, but I just thought it was cool. She is the first Black woman to compose music for the New York City Ballet.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just thought it was a cool little piece. So they're going to do the singer will compose a commissioned score at the Fall Fashion Gala, the 10th anniversary celebration next month. And it's going to be for, I guess the ballet's going to be there. And I just thought it was really cool that she's the first Black woman to do it.
And is she a renowned composer anyway? Has she been composed for other things before?
She's definitely a musician, and I know she's done compositions and production and more kind of behind the scenes type stuff. She writes and she does more. She does sing, but and she has won some Grammys. That's not what they're called, everybody. Grammys for R&B, but I do think she's done a lot of behind the scenes things more than Beyonce has.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Not to insult Beyonce. Beyonce's just more of the name you hear all the time on mainstream. So, yeah. So I just thought that was cool. And then this might not count as music news, but it was news to me because I was reading it in the news. Debatable. So, you know how we joke about like you hit a certain age, Tim, and when you hit a certain age, you stop listening to modern day music and that kind of stuff, and you become the old person. So they did a study with a bunch of people. It was about, and basically what they determined is the age that happens is 33.
33 and 1/3, I would hope.
33 and 1/3, yes, Tim. But it's just like apparently when you hit 33 is when you kind of start blocking out new music, which is ironic because I will be 33 this upcoming year, so I'll be able to test and see if that's true.
There we are. I'm trying to think when I bailed on new music.
I don't know. You've been 100 since you were 6. It's debatable.
Yeah. I don't know. It was probably early 2000s. Which puts me at about, let me think, 25, 26, something like that. So it probably fits in with that.
Yeah, it's basically that seems to be the age when people kind of just like stop even trying to invest their time in new music and just enjoy what they enjoy. But yeah, 33 years old is what the study came up with as the average age. And basically it's talking about in your 30s in general. But when I was reading the article, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is I've heard is that whatever music you was listening to when you was like 14 or 15, I think it is, that's like the soundtrack to your life. I've read an article to that effect as well.
Yeah, it's that whole nostalgia thing that we all are suckers for. Exactly.
I mean, I'm not against new music, and there's some rock artists, and there's some things that slip through. But, in all honesty, I listen to what's considered like in the charts, and it's terrible. I'm sorry. It's just poor.
Well, Tim's over 33, everyone. So anyway, I was, what was it I was reading? I saw this thing that popped up on Facebook the other day. And it said I was hosting a youth like retreat or something, like a camping thing or something. And I asked the kid who had his headphones in, what was he listening to? He goes, oh, just some classic rock. And he goes, I was expecting him to come back with Led Zeppelin. And he goes, oh, just Blink-182 and Coldplay. And he went, how old am I? Did I come over here on the Mayflower at this point?
I was talking to a co-worker's daughter who comes in once in a while. She doesn't work where I work, but she comes in to meet her mother who works there once in a while. And I think at the time she was 14, maybe 15, something like that. And she's kind of cool. She's into theater and art and performance and stuff. So, I see her once in a while and just say hello. And we was talking about music, and she says, I often, listen to, really old music. And I said, well, what do you consider really old? She goes, I don't know, 2000. I said, do you realize I routinely listen to music from the 50s?
Oh, Lord. Well, I mean, the Coldplay one got me, but when they said Blink-182, I was like, well, I'm officially old. That was the soundtrack to my 14-year-old life. All right. I guess we could move away from music news now, but those are my two. Like I said, the last one might not necessarily be news, but it was a study in the news, so I went with it.
There we go. Okay, well, that wraps up our music news segment. Okay, so this week, it's my turn to pick the topic. And I've been thinking about, different things that we could do. And I thought this is something that we've touched on some of these artists before. But I thought, well, let's go into some different artists for this topic. So this week, we are looking at the country of Sweden.
I knew there was going to have to be a dedicated. It comes up every podcast. In some way, Sweden is always mentioned.
Exactly. So I've decided to pull out a few artists that come from Sweden.
Okay.
And some of their songs that we can discuss and see where it goes from there.
All right.
But before we get into that, I just wanted to talk about Sweden. Now, Sweden, of course, is in Scandinavia, has a population of about 10 million people, give or take. Sweden is not in the euro. They have the Swedish krona. They had a referendum on that, and it was decided that the people of Sweden didn't want to go in the euro, so they kept their Swedish krona.
So they're not in the EU at all?
They're in the EU, but I think their membership is slightly different. It's much how the UK used to be. They're in it, but they have certain provisions, and they don't have monetary union and things like that. I've been very lucky to go to Sweden many times. I've been to Stockholm, I've been to Gothenburg, I've been to Jönköping. I've been to all different places in Sweden. Very lucky to do that. I've always found the people of Sweden to be incredibly friendly and nice. Of course, the language is Swedish. However, English is incredibly widely spoken. I've met older people in Sweden who tell me that, like, back, many years ago, the second language that people would traditionally learn was German. So you may find people who are in their 80s at this point probably know German as a second language better than English, but certainly in contemporary times, almost everybody speaks English.
They don't really have an accent either, too. Like when I hear, like on TV or I watch a video, like they do, but it's not a strong accent at all. Their English is very clear.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that sometimes people from Sweden, when you hear them speaking English, to me, you sort of expect them to speak with a British style accent.
They sound American.
Exactly. And I think that comes from sort of the proliferation of US media. Because you think, you're learning English in school, you're learning English from your family if you're speaking English in some degree at home or with friends. But what is the sort of native English you're going to hear? It's going to be US TV shows and it's going to be US films. So it's obvious you're going to pick up that accent as you learn the language.
So in the UK, like I'm thinking like Britain, that kind of thing, England, whatever you want to call it, is there more of a turn towards an American sound, or do they still all generally have a British accent?
No, everybody in England. Yeah, everybody in England has a British accent. I mean, maybe some people might.
I was just curious if it's gotten more American over time because of American media, or you think it's still pretty British?
No, what you find is a lot of slang words seem to have crossed the Atlantic both ways.
That makes sense.
That's certainly something that you see. And I'm finding that like more US media is popular in the UK, even in the 10 odd years since I've left, speaking to people from England. And you're like, oh, you know about that now.
I mean, I wasn't trying to say that I want them to lose their accent. I was just curious if you'd seen like a change towards that. But I guess it's probably more of just like you're saying, words they picked up from US media and things like that.
Exactly. Well, I do have one other interesting fun fact about Sweden. Okay. So they drive on the same country. They drive on the same side as we do in this country, which is the opposite side to the UK. So we drive on the right-hand side of the road, not the left-hand side of the road. However, Sweden, prior to 1967, used to drive on the same side as the UK, on the left-hand side. And they decided in 1967 to harmonize them with the rest of Europe and then some of their neighbors as well. They were going to switch to the other side. The funny thing was, most of the vehicles sold in Sweden were left-hand drive cars.
That's good to ask, yeah.
Yeah, but they decided in 67 that they would switch. And apparently the way that they did it is it was this huge campaign that everyone was going to be aware that this was going to happen. And it was like on a Friday night or something. They closed all the roads in the entire country of Sweden. They moved all the traffic signs round. They moved all the junctions round. And then I think it was like on the Monday morning or something. They were like, okay, you're driving on the other side now.
See, and that would, I wonder, I can't imagine me being able to do that naturally. Like you just tell me, okay, go to the other side now. And I would just do it. Like, I feel like I'd be the one who just runs out in the traffic and kills 3 people because I don't think I could handle it.
Well, I've done every combination of this. I've driven a British car in France on the other side of the road with the steering wheel on the wrong side. I've driven in the UK in a German car with the steering wheel on the wrong side. And then I've driven, British cars with the right side and US cars on the right side, obviously. So when you first start doing it, it messes with your head a bit. And certainly when I first moved here, even though I'd driven in Europe a lot, when I moved here, sometimes you'd get to a junction and you're like, what do I do with this? But I mean, I've lived here 12 years nearly, and now I couldn't even imagine driving on the other side of the road.
Well, and I feel like it would be one thing if like you could follow the flow of traffic. You know what I'm saying, Tim? Like it's one thing if I can follow the flow. Like if you put me in Europe and I'm following the way everybody else is driving, I might be able to pick up on that. But just to swap it on me overnight, what if I get up at 6 a.m. and no one else is on the road? You know what I mean? Like if I could follow the flow, I feel like it would be fine. But I do know, that Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing, and I can't remember what the other actor's name was. They got in a really bad accident in the UK. I want to say, I don't know where it was, maybe Wales, something like that. Anyway, they were driving and it was really stormy, and it was that kind of thing. It was like where you have to drive. They're not used to driving on the other side of the road, and they like ran head on into someone and got into a serious accident. And that's why Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing can't really dance anymore. She was severely injured, and sadly, the other driver passed away.
Oh, goodness me. I mean,
yeah, I can't remember who it was.
I mean, UK roads, if you live there and you're used to it, I mean, there's a lot of cars and there's a lot of congestion. But if you're in it all day, every day, you're aware of how the roundabouts work and these weird chicanes they put in residential areas and motorways and all that kind of stuff. You know how it works. And the fact most UK cars are manual. So I can see that, if you're coming from the US with big roads, big junctions, and all of a sudden you're in like very much smaller roads, you're probably in a manual car. It's dark, it's raining, and you don't know where you're going, and the road's on the wrong side. I could see that an accident like that could happen.
So I just Googled it. It's Matthew Broderick. So in 1987, they had a car crash that claimed the lives of two other women. It says they were actually in Ireland. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember. It was rainy. They were in Ireland. They weren't used to driving on the other side of the road. Apparently, it's a very steep area in Ireland because, like you're saying, like small windy roads. But yeah, they got in a really bad accident. She said that she thought Matthew Broderick was dead. Apparently, he was unconscious. She was conscious, but it messed up her like back and things like that, so she couldn't dance anymore. And yeah, sadly, the other two drivers were killed.
Terribly sad.
Yeah. So, moral of the story is we're joking about, but that would be, I mean, I guess you never really have to think about it. I think it's interesting that like you can go and just like rent a car in Europe and drive around. I feel like there should be something like if you're American, you should have to like be trained.
Well, it's the same if you come from the UK to the US.
That's true. Yeah.
All you got to show is your UK license, and they'll rent you anything. If you have to be over 25. Yeah. But, I mean, I remember. I think it was one of maybe not the first time I came to visit here. Maybe the second time we went to Vegas and we rented a car at the airport. Mm-hmm. And we were driving down at the top. It was top end of Vegas, I think, up by the Stratosphere. And I needed to turn right. And so I'm in the turn right lane with my indicator on, and everyone behind me is honking. And I said to Hannah, I was like, what am I doing here? And she says, you can turn right on red, right? And I'm like, no.
Well, I've learned that not every state is like that. Did you know that, Tim? Apparently in certain states, you can and you can't. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I thought unless it was posted, you could turn right on red.
So I work for a company that's national. Tim's aware of this. And in our we have a chat, we have a call center, and I monitor the chat a little bit just, because all the managers do, like we're just in there making sure, if anybody's got any questions or whatever. Mm-hmm. And some people were saying certain states, you're not allowed to turn right on red. I've not confirmed or denied this, but that's what they were saying.
I didn't know that.
I knew in other countries it's not like that, but yeah, apparently there's a few states that you're not able to do that.
Interesting.
Well, anyway, this is not a podcast about driving cars in different countries. Maybe we should talk about music.
Well, there we go. Well, let's bring this back to music and bring it back to Swedish music in particular.
We spent a lot of time talking about that one.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention each act. I'm going to say where they're from.
Okay.
In Sweden. And then I'm going to say the song, and then we can discuss and go on from there. And we'll end up talking about, I don't know, steak or something. I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Right. So the first one, starting at the very top here, and that would be Ace of Base. classic Swedish pop act, formed in 1990. And they're from Gothenburg in Sweden. Now, Gothenburg is somewhere that I have been many times, and it's somewhere that I used to fly into, Gothenburg Airport, back in the day when I used to go to Sweden a lot.
Okay.
And the song that I'm going to talk about is All That She Wants.
All that she wants is another baby. So every time I hear that song, by the way, I think of we've talked about carpool karaoke many times, and there was one with Britney Spears, and for some reason he was talking to her about if she wanted more children, and I don't know where she just went, all that she wants is another baby to indicate. And for some reason, every time I hear that, that's what I think of.
Yeah, it was one of those. It's one of those songs that was like in the charts, sort of 90s pop hit in the charts. And again, it was one of those songs that I used to hear a lot of back when I was playing a lot of sort of nightclubs and bars in that sort of late 90s era. Is one that you would hear often.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty popular song because it would have early 90s. I mean, obviously, The Sign is probably their most famous song, I would think. But.
Yeah, I think the Sign, I think certainly from chart success, yes. But All That She Wants, I think if I think of Ace of Base, that is the one that comes to mind for me.
And I like the way this is going to be very strange, but just hear me out. The beginning where she's like, she lives alone, that part, I like the tone of her voice. She has such a nice tone, and the way that part comes, it's like very iconic to me. The sound is just like, and like she keeps that kind of, I don't know how I want to describe it because there's not a really good way to say it. It's mostly just the tone of the singer has like a very rich sound, and the way she's kind of is almost like whiny, but she's talking about leading a lonely life and all that she wants is another baby. The way she conveys that is really, I just really like that sound.
Yeah, and also it has a kind of funky keyboard saxophone sound on it as well.
Yeah, that's true. That helps kind of like, it's just it's a classic pop hit, really.
Exactly. Well, there we go.
Apparently what the Swedes know how to do, Tim.
Yeah, it's as we've been discussing over the last number of episodes, we've come to the conclusion that every pop song from about 1989 onwards has a Swedish production team.
And they're making millions.
Exactly. They're literally printing Swedish krona.
That's funny. All right, what's your next song?
Okay, so the next one, I'm going to 2003, and the people responsible for this song, if you will, are also from Gothenburg, Sweden.
Okay.
And this is The Crazy Frog.
I don't know that I knew that came from Sweden.
Yeah, so the Crazy Frog is famous for a couple of things. One, it was a cover of the song Axel F, which was Harold Faltermeyer originally from the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack. But this was like a housey version of Axel F as portrayed by the Crazy Frog. Now, the interesting thing about the Crazy Frog is he's not a frog. And it was originally called The Annoying Thing, but somehow it got called Crazy Frog by the record company or something like that. The other thing that's interesting about the Crazy Frog is that it's one of those songs that was famous for being a ringtone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was on every commercial saying, text this number for 5 cents and get your Crazy Frog ringtone. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was the early 2000s were an interesting time for the music industry because there wasn't any Spotify. I think it was at the tail end of Napster. Napster had just about finished. So you sort of had a no person's land of innovation, if you will. So there was no Spotify, there was no Google Music, there was none of that stuff. I think YouTube was just about coming in around that kind of time. But what you did have, and what the music industry was doing a lot of, was selling ringtones. Ringtones were the cash cow for the music industry at that time. And it was around the time when we were beginning to get early smartphones. Now, the iPhone came out in 2007, and there were some Windows phones that came out before that, and then Nokia had those Symbian phones, and there were Sony Ericsson phones, and they were sort of smart, I suppose. Some of them could play MP3s, some of them had like a sort of operating system, but most of them supported what they called real tone ringtones. So rather than just going blip blop blip blop, it actually played the audio file.
That's pretty cool. No, that makes sense though. Were you familiar with the I'm a gummy bear? Yes, I'm a gummy. Were you familiar with the gummy bear one, Tim? That was the same kind of thing.
I don't know. I remember there was an MTV one with a guy dancing around in his underpants. Maybe that was an MTV Europe thing.
Wasn't that? I thought that was the guy. Was that a Crazy Frog or was that the Numa Numa guy from Ozone?
I don't know. That there was around that time there was an MTV commercial of like this tune that would play, and it was a guy dancing in his living room and wearing white underpants. And then it was a similar thing where you could get the tune and put it on your phone.
See, I was thinking that might be the Ozone one where the people call it the Numa Numa song, but it's really like Dragonstone Dentia or something. That's the real name of it. But there was one that's like, it's the same kind of Euro pop, and it was from Germany. I remember that because it was spelled gummy bear with like the little dots or whatever, like the German kind of gummy bear with the A. Mm-hmm. But it was like, I'm a gummy bear. Yes, I'm a gummy bear. That was the one that I had. And there was a YouTube video that came out about it too, and he has like a little bite missing from his ear, like someone had bit him. Anyway,
well, around that time. I had phones. Obviously, I think I had a Sony Ericsson phone, but also being into computer stuff, I figured out how to make the ringtones yourself. So I never bought any. So anything I wanted, I just edit the file and then get it on the phone and play it like that. And I can't remember what I had. I mean, it was probably Knight Rider, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
I did not buy it either. I'm just going to be the truth. I found it on the internet, uploaded it to my SD card, and put it in my phone. Because I made sure when I bought the phone that I had, it was like Kyocera, like slider type thing. Mm-hmm. I remember that was the one I had for a while. And I made sure that it could take an external SD and that I could, or mini SD, and that it would like read the files. And then I made that my ringtone.
Did you ever have a Nokia phone?
I did before that. That one was not capable, I think, of anything. It was just a brick.
I had some great Nokia phones, and the battery would last forever, and they were basically indestructible.
I mean, all I ever did was play Snake on mine. So, did you ever play Snake on yours, Tim? Were you a Snake fan?
See, I don't really like computer games.
But that's like on a Nokia phone. Does that even count as a computer game?
Well, I tell you, the only game I've really enjoyed was Tetris.
I do like Tetris. I like Dr. Mario too. There we go.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever played Mario.
So Dr. Mario, so on Super Nintendo or regular Nintendo, whichever one, Tetris and Dr. Mario were on the same, like, you could play them together. You could swap between them on whatever game I had. So that's why I associate them together. There we go.
Then there we are. My interest in computer games waned when I had a Sinclair Spectrum and the games loaded on an audio cassette.
All right. Oh, man. What's the next song?
Okay. So this one is something that we have discussed before. And I think it was one of those episodes where you got me to listen to a bunch of albums I've never heard before, which always like makes hilarity ensue. Because it's like, here's a CD or album from 2011. Listen to that.
Tim's like staring at his computer going, why am I doing this again?
So this one is Robin from 1998, and this is a song from the Sabrina the Teenage Witch soundtrack, which I think was one we discussed previously.
It was.
And this is a song, Show Me Love. Now, Robin, her name is Robin Miriam Carlson, and she's from Stockholm.
Oh my gosh. So I love that song. That song was popular when I was a kid, and she has a great voice too. Like, she's got one of those classic, I don't know, like pop voices, like we were saying, but it's iconic. And the chorus, like, it's in my head all the time. Like, It's one of those songs that never leaves, Tim. What do you remember about it?
Has it got to that point where it's like Hold On by Wilson Phillips?
Kind of, yeah, actually. I think it's hilarious that was on Sabrina, though, that you brought that back up. I hadn't thought about that. I need to pull out my Sabrina the Teenage Witch album at some point. It's getting close to Halloween, you got to bring up the witch stuff.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, we discussed that whole album previously, and there are actually a couple of good tracks in there that I really enjoyed. Yeah,
I mean, and she spelled, just so everybody knows, if you're going to go look up the Sabrina album, but you're trying to find Robin, it's with a Y, everybody. It's Robin with a Y.
Yeah, there is another artist called Robin S, which is a different artist completely. And Robin S, I think, is more of a kind of dance sound.
Yeah. She may be from Sweden too. I don't know.
Well, I will tell you, Robin S is not from Sweden, because when I pulled up the Wikipedia article so I'd have all the research at my fingertips, I was like, hey, she's not from Sweden. She's from, like, I don't know, Boston or something. I was like, oh, no, it's a different Robin.
Oh, yeah. And I think of that song specifically because whenever it was out, what year did that come out, Tim? Do you have it in front of you?
I think, yeah, as I said, 1998, I believe.
Okay, so that would make sense because I was about 8 years old when it came out. That was right when I started. This is shocking to me too, everyone, because we've made jokes about, my family and our luck and all of us being really clumsy. But for some reason, both me and my twin sister were really good at roller skating. And I spent every Friday and Saturday night from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. roller skating. That was my thing. I did it. It would have started close to like 10 years old when I started doing it. So this song was on the jukebox. So I associate this and a few other songs with those specific memories. So that's probably why it's like in my brain. Because I remember like picking it specifically when I would find music. That and like R. Kelly. Or Genuine.
What is it? I believe I can fly. Is that the one that
and then and then it's Genuine Pony, which is, and then there was this song, but that's one of them. And then I always remember playing the Macarena. I would always play the Macarena too. And then people would do the Macarena on roller skates and someone was bound to fall. It was a fun time.
As we've said before, I'm not good with roller skates or ice skates. The last skating type thing I did was ice skating, and I didn't like it, and I haven't done it since. So
as a kid, I was amazing. Both me and my twin sister, front or backwards, sideways, like we could do it all. But as I stopped doing it when I got older because, I'm an adult and I can't spend every Friday and Saturday at the roller rink anymore. It's creepy. So with that being said, I tried it again as an older adult and I was no longer any good at it. I lost my ability to do it and just wanted to hit my face into the ground, basically.
And the thing is, Joy, I don't think I'd let you go roller skating because, you gather injuries like just a car or something. I don't think it's for you now. I'm just saying.
There are 2 injuries in my family related to roller skating. My older sister broke her leg roller skating, and my twin sister broke her arm roller skating, or wrist. Maybe it was her wrist. And that one was when she was a full-grown adult. So thankfully, I didn't find that injury, but there were 2 family roller skating accidents.
As I said, if I hear that you're going to go roller skating, I may have to come around and just make sure you don't leave the house. So I have a question for you, Tim, and this is going to be like we're going back to like the meat raffle. This is my brain. So we as humans are dumb, and here's why I think this. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think that, but who thought it was a good idea to, let's see what happens if I strap literal wheels to my feet and see where I go. Like, who was one day going, I know it comes back from like, I think like the Olympics or something actually is, you know what I mean? Rome is where roller skating comes from. But what one guy thought, what could go wrong? Let's see what happens if I strap wheels to my feet. I don't know, because it doesn't replicate anything in nature. Because, like aeroplanes, for example, you can see that man would want to fly like the birds. And I mean, vehicles doesn't really replicate anything in nature, but it allows you to, travel as fast as a horse, say. But, putting wheels on your feet. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and vehicles came from like horse and buggies. So like it was a progression from a kind of animalistic thing. Sure. But yeah, like what guy one day just said, let's see what happens. But I also have a theory about cars. It was only, I was probably like 19 years old when someone explained to me that cars run on combustion. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, so you mean to tell me we're driving around in metal death traps that are literally running on explosions? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and we wonder what could go wrong? What could go wrong, Tim?
Yeah, and the explosions, there's thousands and thousands of them a minute.
Yep, like multiple explosions over and over and over again is what runs your car. And you're literally in a flying death trap that goes 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, you're going along the road. This thing is spinning around at, tens of thousands of revolutions per minute. And that thing is, there's 4 cylinders or 6 cylinders and 8 cylinders, and all of them exploding one after the other in a line, pushing pistons up and down.
And if you want to go faster, you need the one that has more explosions.
Yeah.
Or I guess if you want to be able to accelerate faster, you know what I mean? Like, if you want the really fast car that goes vroom, vroom, well, good luck. You got to go for 8. And now you got even more explosions.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, as well, is that basically, if you take away fancy heated seats and fancy all the electronics that's in your modern car, in reality, there's nothing really that different in that vehicle to the Model T Ford. I mean, yeah, the suspension's better and the exhaust system's better, but the method of propulsion has not changed since day one.
And that's so weird to me. Like, I remember when I learned that, I was like, are you serious? And now it's stuck with me. I think about that. I go get in my car and I'm like, I'm literally going 75 miles an hour down 460. We even went in and out of traffic while they've got little explosions going on.
Yeah.
It's a weird concept when you think about it at its like minimum. There's other things that I think about that too, like skateboards. I'm like, this seems like a really dumb idea. What guy thought it was a good idea to put a wooden board with wheels and see how it goes for me? You're not even attached to those.
Well, mate, see, that's like the horse and buggy without the horse with a very small
That's
buggy
true.
that you stand on, I suppose.
It still doesn't seem like a good idea. And then we took the roller skates, Tim, and we made it worse by making those shoes that have the wheels that pop out of them, the Heelys. Oh, yeah, let me give you a pair of shoes that have a wheel that if you tap the heel the wrong way when you're going down the stairs, the wheel will pop out and you'll go flying. Like, now, Charlie says my husband has had many Heelys back in his day. He says they did have they kind of updated them and you had to squeeze it to get it out. But still, I'm not taking the risk. It really sounds like a dumb idea.
Do you know what? We should do a whole episode where Joy explores items. So, it'd be like, you know what? So, like, you're in your house and there's this metal box. And you know what happens? Like, it's in your house, but fire's coming out of it. And then what do? You put, like, a piece of metal on it that gets really hot. Then you put food in it. And it's a fire in your house.
What? I mean, think about how microwaves work, Tim. They're literally waves coming out of it. Did you know that there was a whole thing with, like, Russians and, like, using microwaves to trigger bombs, and they were like literally worried that they would take just a household microwave and the bomb would be set up on the same radio wave that your microwave's on, and they just turn the microwave on and it would explode. There's a whole thing in history about that.
Yeah, that sounds like a plot from a film.
I will Google it and put it on my Facebook page. I read about it and it was real. But it's like, I mean, anyway, we could be here all week because I think about this a lot. I'm like, and Lord knows what's in an air fryer. And like, how does that even work?
See, I'm not entirely sure how an air fryer works, if I'm being honest. I assume it's just like a small oven. I'm assuming.
I don't know. It's something to do with air, Tim. Duh. But anyway, but the concept of how we got to literally driving around 70 miles per hour with mini explosions and giant metal things blows my mind. I don't know what Henry Ford was thinking back in the day or whatever, but
I don't know, but when I drive out to work tomorrow, I'll think of all these vehicles with them many explosions as I'm driving along.
Tim's gonna be like, "Great, that's gonna be in my brain now for the rest of the time." Well, if I have to live with it, you have to live with it. All right, back to Swedish pop.
Okay, so the next one I have for you. This chap is he's from Stockholm again. I think a lot of people say they're from Stockholm because it's a big city, and much like you say you're from London, there's suburbs and all that kind of stuff. But this chap is from Stockholm, and this song is from 1988, I believe. Let me just check that with my notes here. It was from 1998. Sorry, not 1988, 1998, and this is Eagle Eye Cherry. And this is Save Tonight.
Another great song. Tim's just hitting it. The 90s pop, man, because it's like right up my alley. But I would have never guessed they were from Sweden. Like, not even a little bit. because it's even kind of more of an alternative rock kind of song more than pop.
Yeah, I mean, he's most definitely Swedish.
Do you know any of his other music? Because for me, this is like the only song I know from Eagle Eye Cherry.
Well, I have his discography here, and I'm looking at his singles. I have not heard of any of these other ones. Save Tonight, obviously, When Mermaids Cry, Falling in Love Again, Permanent Tears, Are You Still Having Fun? Skull Tattoo, did he do a cover of Don't Give Up? Or maybe it's his own song. Can't Get Enough. I think he's known as the Save Tonight chap. And the thing is about this song, this was one of these songs that I used to play at the jam night with Ian. And in fact, I could still play it now. It's got the same chords all the way through.
I learned it on the ukulele. It was one of the first songs I learned.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really easy. And it's got a very easy medley. Tim, it's a medley. No, a melody that pretty much anybody can follow. Like, it's not hard. But yeah, I had no clue. Why are words hard for me right now, Tim? I'm so stuck on that we're driving around with mini explosions. But no, I had no clue I wouldn't have even thought about Sweden. See, it just goes to show you the Swedes have invaded the music scene more than I even realized.
Well, and also I'd like to just bring to your attention. So you have Eagle Eye Cherry, Swedish gentleman. And then I'd like to speak about Nina Marian Karlsson, also from Stockholm in Sweden, who's known by her stage name of Nina Cherry.
Cherry, yeah. Huh.
And her song that I'd like to talk about, well, I've got two. I think I'm going to go with this one, Man Child.
Okay. That's a good one. That's probably the one that I know the most from her.
Yeah, she had her sort of breakthrough song was Buffalo Stance.
Yeah. And I know she has an album that's called Raw Like Sushi, and that always stuck out to me.
Yeah, Raw Like Sushi, I used to have that on vinyl. I bought it when it came out because I really enjoyed Buffalo Stance. And I think Manchild was on the next album that she released. But that was one of those very pivotal albums for me because, as you know, my taste in music is very varied. And I think nothing about listening to very disparate genres in the same session. I might put a heavy rock thing on and I might listen to a pop thing and then I might listen to, it makes nothing.
Tim, when we did my episode like that, remember I had The Clash and then the next song was Paris Hilton.
There we are. So, if you like something, you like it and you never have to justify it. But
exactly.
I have a very vivid memory of driving or being driven to Germany on a coach with my granddad going to Germany for the very first time. First time I ever went abroad, in fact. And we're on this coach through the night. And this is my first time I'd ever seen outside of the UK with my own eyes. And I think we was driving through France and then into like Belgium and then, into Germany, etc. And I had a little red Sony Walkman and I had a cassette tape. And on one side, I had Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. And on the other side, I had Nina Cherry's Raw Like Sushi. Both albums I enjoyed. And at the time, it didn't even dawn on me that some people might think this was unusual. They were just both albums I enjoyed. So I put one on one side and I put one on the other side.
I mean, to be fair, I've done the same thing. Though my favorite story about traveling and listening to music was when Fountains for Wayne, when Stacey's mom came out. I brought that album. I can't remember what the name. It might have just been a self-titled album. I can't remember what the name was. Let's be honest, they were one-hit wonders, but I was interested in them for 5 minutes. And when I went to New York City, that was the album I listened to for one of my show choirs that I performed in. And I remember I fell asleep with it on. And like when I say I listened to that album probably on repeat, like, because 10-hour drive from here to New York, and that's about an hour south from here. It played nonstop the entire time. But I remember I woke up and Stacey's mom was playing, and then I'd look out the window because we were on one of those big buses, and I'm like, oh, Stacey's mom's back again. And then lo and behold, Tim, we walk into Hard Rock, and guess what's playing? Stacey's mom.
Well, that's the thing now. We are so spoiled because certainly when you had a Walkman with a cassette, or even if you had a Discman with a CD in it before people were burning their own CDs, if you went on a trip or you went out somewhere and you had a personal device with you, you may only have 1 or 2 tapes or 1 or 2 CDs with you, and that's what you have for the duration. Now you go out with your phone or your MP3 player, and and even if you have the MP3s on your device like I do, I've probably got 10,000 of them on there.
Yep.
And certainly if you use something like Spotify or Apple Music or something, there's millions at your disposal, and you never have to, unless you want to, you never have to listen to that thing over and over and over again.
No, that makes sense. And it's funny, though. I remember one time I had burned a CD in my twin sister's car, and I want to say it was the Kinks, but don't quote me on it. But for some reason, that CD was always the one that was in her CD player when we would get in it. And that first song would start, and it'd be the Kinks. And I got to the point where I'm like, burn it. I can never hear it again. Because that would be the first song that played every time we got in her car.
Well, you know, there's a theory. If you leave a cassette or a CD long enough in your car, eventually it turns into Queen's greatest hits. Makes sense.
Well, maybe that's what that became, because I don't remember where it went. One of my other favorite ones was when Aqua, the CD that had whatever the CD was that had Barbie Girl on it. I don't remember the name of it. But see, I was obsessed with Aqua outside of Barbie Girl because I love like Dr. Jones and all those songs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was one that I listened to nonstop in my car a lot. Back in the day.
Yeah, well, I had cassettes very briefly when I first started driving, but I got into having a mini disc player in my car, and then my mini disc player was stolen by a thief. And it was parked out. I forget what it was. It was like Hounslow East Tube Station, I think. And we went out somewhere, went to a Hard Rock Cafe, because there's a job I was leaving at the time. We went to a Hard Rock Cafe as like a leaving do. And I came back and someone had broken in it and stolen the mini disc player out of it.
Was there anything in it? Like what CD did they get, or what disc did they get?
Well, with mini discs, I mean, I didn't really have any original mini discs. It was ones that you recorded yourself. It was just the aggravation of someone stealing something out of your car. Yeah. And then I think the police caught the person, and I never got it back, and it was a whole thing. And then I got a CD player in my car, and I used to burn my own CDs, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I burned a lot of CDs back in the day. I don't even know whatever happened to them. They're somewhere.
They turned into Queen's greatest hits, and then they were released into the wild.
It's true. I mean, to be fair, most of them were burnt. I mean, I would never use illegal CD software like to get like Kazaa to download all that music or anything, Tim. Never.
No, you would have purchased the CDs and then you would rip them into your computer.
Yeah, totally. Wink, nod, wink, wink. What do you mean, Tim? What is BearShare? I've never heard of that before.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Joy, and we're going to move on because this is things I've never even heard of. So
weird concept. All right, back to Sweden.
All right, so this is a monster hit. They're listed as just coming from Sweden.
Okay.
I mean, maybe no province in Sweden wants to own up to them coming from there.
Okay.
But this would be Rednex, and who can forget that song, Cotton Eye Joe?
Before you even said it, I knew that's what was coming. Okay, I am a Cotton Eye Joe lover, and the fact that no one wants to own up to it makes me sad. I have so many memories of this song. This was one of those songs for me as a kid that I made an effort to record it when it came on the radio, Tim, with an actual tape. Like I remember, so in the back room of my house, we had one of those really big, I remember I had like a vinyl player on top, and it was like one of those big kind of surround sound, very classic, CD players everybody had in their house with the radio. Mm-hmm. So we had one in the back room of my house, and me and my twin sister would sit back there, and that's where we would listen to our music. And I distinctly remember waiting Chumbawamba's Thud Thumping and Rednex, Cotton Eye Joe for both of them to come on so I could record both of them. And the reason it was so important was back to my roller skating days. Then me and Brandy, my twin sister, we would take our little boom box. It was pink. We would put it out on the front porch that was made from concrete, because this is when I first started roller skating. I would put on my Barbie roller skates, and I would play that while I was roller skating on the front porch. It was really important that those songs were part of this event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is you're recreating this roller disco affair at home. You've got the music. I mean, who would not want to do that?
I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I've never met anyone who actually doesn't like Cotton Eye Joe. Let's be honest, Tim. I mean, it's ridiculous. We all know it's ridiculous, but it's fun.
I will tell you that when I play in moose lodges and other such sort of social clubs around here, and on the occasion I quote unquote DJ the breaks, which normally means putting Cupid Shuffle followed by the electric slide, followed by wobble. When you put Cotton Eye Joe on, it's fair to say most people seem to have a rip-roaring great time.
Well, I mean, I would think they're like a novelty act. Like, I mean, no one's taking them seriously. And then I think where we live in Southwest Virginia, you know, and there's literal banjos in the song.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a contributing factor. I will say it's the stereotypes in the music video were a little bit hurtful coming from Appalachia. But anyway, I'll give you a pass, Swedes. So remember it's like that guy with like the straw hat and everything?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're like Swedish people pretending to be redneck people, I suppose. I don't know.
Rude. All right. But yes, I have very distinct memories of that song.
But there we are. All right. Well, let's move on to another titan of Swedish music. This is a band that's from Upplands Väsby, I think, which is a suburb of Stockholm.
Okay.
And who can forget the band Europe? And I'm not going to go with the final countdown. No.
Never.
I'm going to go with the 1986 hit Carrie, the power ballad.
Power ballad. Yep. That is a song that I was singing the words to wrong for a very long time. I remember it because, you know, he's like, things they changed my friend or whatever. Whoa, Carrie, or something like that. And then we'll meet again, somewhere again, something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I thought he was saying, but that was not it. And then one day I was singing it and Charlie's like, what did you think he said? And I'm like, I don't actually know. And then I Googled it and I'm like, okay. Because it's like he's talking about, like, you know, he's going like Carrie, and then something about things change by Friday, then Carrie, and then something else. But that's not what I was thinking. And then maybe we'll meet again. And me and Charlie were like in the car driving and I was singing along. He goes, what did you think they said? And I was like, I actually don't know. And that's when I learned that I was saying the words wrong. I don't remember what I was saying, but it wasn't that.
Well, the thing is, you were living your best life, Joy, and you was enjoying that song, and it's a monumental power ballad from the Swedish rockers Europe.
As Charlie would say when I call him out, because he'll just start singing weird words and sounds. He says he's making his. What is it? He says he's doing a remix. He's making a remix.
There we are. It's reimagining the song.
Very, yeah, that's what I'll go with. To be fair, I think Charlie sometimes forgets what song's even on. So I don't know that he's really remixing it. I think he just enjoys making random sounds. All right. What do we got left, Tim?
Well, I just want to say one last thing about Europe before we move on to the next artist. So the lead singer of Europe is a gentleman called Joey Tempest. Now, Joey Tempest isn't that gentleman's real name. He has a proper Swedish name, and he's Rolf Magnus Joachim Larsson.
What a name. I would want to go by that.
I'd imagine he calls himself Joey Tempest to Americanize it to some degree. Because like, if you were called Rolf Larsson, I don't know if it would have the same ring as Joey Tempest. I don't know.
I mean, Joey Tempest is kind of cool too, though. Just random.
You know, when you're a rock star, you can choose to have your own name.
That is the best part about being a rock star. Is you can just change it. And then if you're Prince, you can change it every day. How it's spelled, if there's symbols in it.
Exactly. All right. So let's move on. I think we've got a couple left of our Swedish artists. So I'm going to go with this. This is a duo, and they're from Halmstad in Sweden. And this would be Roxette. And I'm going to go with the song The Look. And I will tell you, I may have told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. So I used to have the album Look Sharp on cassette. I never used to buy a lot of original cassettes because I used to just buy them on record and then copy them onto cassette for my Walkman. But I think I was away on holiday and I bought it on cassette. It was in Chelsea, I believe, and I bought it on cassette in Our Price Records. And then I have a very vivid memory of being on holiday, this time in Camber Sands, Pontins, and I had my little Walkman with little powered speakers. And I remember just like chilling out in like the bedroom there in the place that we stayed at, listening to that album Look Sharp, and then, of course, opening with the song The Look.
All I think about when I think of The Look is what in the world can make a brown-eyed girl turn blue? That's all that comes to mind, which everybody who don't understand, that's just the lyrics of the song.
Well, I know what can use contact lenses.
Yeah, that's true, Tim. Maybe they weren't thinking about that when they wrote the song, though.
Yeah, maybe Mary Fredrickson. Maybe she was worked in I don't know. I don't know what the field of contact lenses development is called, but maybe she worked in that. I don't know.
Maybe that's what they're saying. She's got the look, like looking, like seeing with your eyes. See, it all comes full circle.
There we are. She was developing contact lenses. She was writing songs. I mean, who knows what's going on with these Swedish musicians?
I don't know. They know what they're doing, Tim, because they make millions.
Exactly.
Anyway,
there we go. All right. Well, I have one last artist to close out with. Now, right. This artist, I would say, is not the elephant in the room. It's the elk in the room, to use the correct Swedish animal terminology.
All right.
This is a Swedish power pop at its very finest. And this is an artist that we spoke about at the very beginning of the podcast. But how could I not talk about Swedish music and Swedish artists without talking about ABBA?
Never heard of them. I don't think they're going to make it.
Yeah, and they are from Stockholm. They were active from 72 to 82, and then they took a little bit of a hiatus. And then in 2016, they started recording some new music. And as we know, last year we got the new Voyage album, which was nearly all new recorded music. And they have that stage show hologram avatar thing going on in London at the moment, which apparently is absolutely amazing. And I wish I could go and see it. And if you're in the UK, you really should go and see it, because I would love to go and see that.
I keep hearing good things about it. Like all the news and everything says it's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard that, like, if you're at the very, very front of it, the effect isn't quite so good. But if you're about halfway back in the ABBA theatre, with the way that they do it, where they've got the high definition screen and they've got lights in the theatre and a real band, it's the experience is unbelievable. That's what I've heard. There's a gentleman who I follow on Twitter who's part of the Pat Francis Rock Solid family of people who are on Twitter. He's actually traveled to the UK, and one of the main things he wanted to do was go and see ABBA Voyage. And I don't blame him, because I mean, I would do exactly the same.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I'd do the same as well.
Exactly.
Well, did you pick a specific song, Tim, or are you just going to say their name in general?
Well, I decided to pull this song out. This is from ABBA. I mean, it's obviously from an album, but it's from my ABBA Gold album. This is from 1977. This is The Name of the Game.
It's a good song. That's one you don't really think about a lot either. Like, people don't talk about that one so much.
Yeah, I mean, there was lots to pick from, and I thought, well, you know, that's like you say, that's not one that's necessarily spoken of in the same way as Money, 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 and you know, other ones that are on everyone's tip of their tongue when they're talking about ABBA.
Yeah, I mean, like, Gimme, 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 Mamma Mia, Take a Chance on Me. We could be here all week. Waterloo. There's a lot of songs.
Exactly. I mean, do you have any particular ABBA songs that you really enjoy over and above?
Money Talk. Well, I must say Money
that's
Talk.
AC/DC.
That's not what I meant to say. God, what's the word about money? Money, money, money. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, money, money, money.
Money, money, money is up there. Money does talk, though, guys. That's because I'm stuck on the AC/DC after the last AC/DC conversation we had. No, money, money, money is up there. I love Waterloo. I mean, I really like Voulez-Vous is great, because I like the sounds. But I mean, I don't know a song from ABBA I don't like, if that makes sense. Like, I like every ABBA song that's probably ever existed. I will say, I wanted to, when you said The Name of the Game, I really wanted to go, but does it mean anything to you? But I wasn't sure if it was too funny. Anyway.
One song that I really... Of course. One song that I really love from ABBA is Gimme, 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 A Man After Midnight. And the interesting thing about this song, this is something that you only learn when you spend time around Swedish people. Now, in Swedish, if you say 12:30, like if I say to you 12:30, you think 12:30.
So like at the beginning of the song where it says 12:30?
Yeah, it says 12:30.
Yeah.
What she is meaning in Swedish is 11:30, because when a Swedish person says 12:30, they mean half an hour to 12.
Interesting. Well, she is saying, 12:30, she's watching the clock, and then she's saying she wants a man after midnight. So she's like counting down the hours to midnight.
Correct. There you go. That's that. So that's what she means. She means 11:30, not 12:30. Because she says, I'm in my flat all alone. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then the chorus is, of course, gimme, gimme, gimme a man after midnight. But if she was talking 12:30, it would make no sense.
You're right, but I've never thought about it until someone pointed it out to me. It's just a cool sounding song. It's very reminiscent of the Donna Summer song. What's the one that she sings about? That's like the same topic. Oh, what is that song I'm thinking of?
Is it like Hot Stuff?
Yeah. Because she's talking about looking for some hot stuff later this evening.
Yeah,
it's the same topic.
And you know what? Both of those songs have a very similar kind of funky disco beat as well.
Yes, and I do love my disco. But yeah, that when you were saying that, I was like, oh, it's the same story as what Donna Summer was saying at hers.
There we are. Well, if you ever meet a Swedish person who's maybe hasn't really been super involved with like US or UK culture, and they say, oh, I'm going to meet you at 4:30, you will know to meet them at 3:30.
Tim just saved the day right there, everybody. For all your Swedish meeting events that you may be coming up on. I wonder if they're the only country like that. Now, I do know in France, when I was learning to tell time, they do kind of like a backwards time too. Like it'll be like you say like the and this, like there's a whole thing with French, but I'm sure other countries are like that as well. I mean, most countries. Go ahead. Yeah,
and I think it's like German numbers where you say 1 and 22 and 20, not 21 and 22, I think.
Well, and then after you get past, so once you get to a certain number in French, I don't remember because I know, so I can count it. So you've got your 20s, which are 20, or your, 21 is just 20, 21, and they got 31. And then there's one where it's like 40 and 1. 40 and 2 instead of like 41, 42. Like it changes in French too. But it's been so long since I've had to use it for anything. I can't exactly remember.
Well, there we are. If I need something translated with time in it, maybe I'll give it a Goog. I won't necessarily give you a call.
Yeah, because I don't remember how to use it. Well, you're fine if it's up to 30. If it's past the number 30, you're on your own, Tim.
And to think, like, you're in your house and there's like an electric motor and it's always spinning, but it's able to tell the time. And who decided the time? Who thought that would be a good idea?
Why
is it 12? Why is it not 10 when everything else is base 10? I don't, why?
Well, one that Charlie always wonders about is, and it makes sense if you think about it, but he always thinks about who was the first person to milk a cow.
Yeah,
that's how cows their babies get their milk.
Yeah, I made the decision not to eat meat. If you want to eat meat, that's fine. It's just a decision I made. But I'm not a vegan, but you do sometimes think that. It's like they're making a substance which is designed for baby cows. It's not for us to make pizzas out of. Who came up with that idea?
But I really do like cheese. I'm a vegetarian too, but I still eat dairy.
Yeah, I minimize my dairy because I try and make my cholesterol lower wherever possible. But like you say, who came up with that idea? I mean, it sounds disgusting, but human milk, if you made cheese of human milk, that makes sense because it's designed for humans to consume.
It is, but it still sounds really weird when you say
it. No, it does. and that is nothing that you'd ever do because it is wrong. But if you logically think about it, that's who it's for. But we're consuming a substance which is designed for baby cows.
Well, and if you think about another one that bothers me, Tim, is think about TV shows. Mm-hmm. We're watching people at a time, so you're watching a TV show from 1979 in this day and age. And you wonder if, because they don't know you're watching them, the concept's kind of creepy. And then they talk about, when you're watching ones that's got, the studio audience and they're laughing, those people are all dead because they're all from the 1950s. So I'm hearing dead people voices while I'm watching my studio movie from the 1970s, and 3 of the actors in it are dead as well, but I'm watching it in 2020.
Yeah, I was watching WWF wrestling today, and I think all the people that were wrestling in it were all dead as well. But I mean,
it's a weird concept.
Yeah, and this has got very deep all of a sudden. I mean, we were talking about Europop, and now we're like some kind of weird philosophy type thing going
Well,
on.
now, Tim, I just want you, when you're driving tomorrow, to think about the combustions going off in your car as you're going 60 down the interstate to work.
Well, it is called an internal combustion engine, but I mean, you are right. In concept, there's explosions going on under your bonnet.
Constantly, multiple ones on repeat. Not just like one explosion to get the car going. No, it's literally the entire time you're driving is explosion after explosion after explosion.
Oh,
All right,
well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we've spoken about Swedish music. We've spoken about concepts that confuse us and bother us, and we will bid you farewell. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.